Processing commission payments for agents begins by the agent entering in to the CRM all the transactions they have done for the retailer, which in this case will be Green Mountain, and actually more than one agent has entered transactions. The next step to commission processing is to go to the settings, retailer check processing, and then you can see here that checks have already been set up for a retailer, but the process begins by clicking new and then completing this form and saving it to run the processing against this newly saved check. Once a check has been set up, this is what it looks like after the setup has been completed. Important fields are, as you can see here, particularly the value is very important. You'll also notice that down here the value is put into the payment total and the total left, and then you proceed. Once this is all set up and saved, then you come back and to the same page click generate, and what this does is to populate the grid with all the transactions for this retailer that you're processing, in this case Green Mountain. And you'll notice that when this is populated, all these transactions, that there are no amounts showing in this column and nothing in this column, which is where we'll be importing information into. We will now proceed to the next step after generating the transactions in the new retailer check processing for Green Mountain for the month of June. We do that by minimizing this, going to the commission matching program, which is located on your local computer, and opening this, which is the opening starting screen, and we will proceed to log in. And upon logging in, we will then select the retailer that we are processing. In this case will be Green Mountain. We will be processing for the month of June and 2019. We then need to select the Excel file. This file is the one that is located on a desktop or in any file where you have saved the Excel spreadsheet that we have received from the retailer for each payment that's been received for the month. In this case, I'm going to minimize this for a second, open up the spreadsheet that we received for Green Mountain. This is what it looks like. This is the information that we particularly need to match for Green Mountain, that column, this column, and the payment amount, which is this column. So we will close this out, and then we will bring back our matching program and select that spreadsheet by clicking on Browse and looking for where we save that. In this case, it is the desktop. There's the Excel file. We'll open that up, and you'll notice that the log file is inserted here. Sheet name, sometimes this will be where you can select this sheet name. In this case, it has already been pre-programmed for to select the right spreadsheet tab, in this case detail. We will then load the Excel file, and if you'll notice then that these columns and this data is in the same exact format that is in the Excel spreadsheet. We will then want to match or select the columns we want to match on. In this case, we want to match on this column. Match meaning this is how we match the payment to the transaction. In this case, for Green Mountain, we will match on this column. And the data we want to import is this data here in this column here, and in this column here, usage. In this case, usage is not highlighted, which is one of the problems with the program and needs to be corrected, that every column that has been selected for either matching or importing needs to be highlighted in yellow. If you do not see the columns highlighted and need to be mapped, then you go to the add mapping function, and you'll notice that prospect has been mapped, amount has been mapped, usage is not. And so we will go down and pick usage, and we'll pick OK, and it should normally be this would be yellow. However, this is again what needs to be fixed. And once these are mapped, the program should be saving these mapped columns for the future, so they don't have to be remapped unless some change occurs. So once this is completed and columns have been mapped, you come down to the lower right hand corner and click on update. If that can be seen, I'll move this up, maybe that will help. And here's the update function, and so I will click on update, and this will take anywhere from less than a minute to several minutes to do the updating. And what this is happening is that you're actually matching the payments in the Excel spreadsheet to the transactions in the system. In this case, every transaction did match, so we had no unmatched payments. And you can tell which ones match because the matched ones are blue and the unmatched ones are green. And when this process is completed, I'll minimize this for a second and open up this text file, which is created automatically after completing that process. And this, if you open the attachment, if any unmatched transactions occurred, they will appear here. In this case, we had everything matched, so everything is fine and there were no problems. But when there are unmatched transactions, then this report goes out to all the agents, and they're instructed to proceed to fix the transactions, and then we will process again to make sure everybody gets paid correctly. So closing this down, we will then reopen the commission program, and so this process has now been finished. So we will then just minimize this, go back to the retailer check that we had set up, and if you'll notice again that there's this payment of $1,750.16, total left is the same. So if you watch this column, if it's working correctly, will have amounts inserted here and amounts inserted for usage. That's the data we're trying to import, and we do that by clicking on this little sync symbol here on the right hand corner, and that completes the process. And as you can see, the payment total is this. There's nothing left, which means that everything matched. Otherwise, if there was any unmatched, there will be a number here, a negative number, and you either continue to fix the transactions until this gets minimized. And so in this case, you can see everything was saved properly, and then we want to save this data, and you do that by clicking on the lower right hand corner. And if that's not visible very easily, let me move this up so that perhaps it's easier to see the location of that save function. It's way down here in the lower right hand corner. So we click save, and that proceeds to save the data. So that completes that process. We then will go back to We will then go back to process. If there are other checks, you'll notice that we have up to 25 checks we have to process in the same manner each month. Um, that that concludes the presentation of how to process a check.